storing the weapons that
the
you
responsibility.
purchased. Because it's not like he went and purchased them on his own. He had access because they were not properly.
But the fact that she was able to purchase that many is kind of a crime in and of itself as well.
Well, absolutely, but that goes back to what we were talking about with you have the right to buy a gun, your background check can clear, but the ability for one of your kids to get it, you haven't taken the proper precautions. So while it is perfectly legal within your right to own the weapon, there is that responsibility of understanding what owning that weapon entails, the safety, the things that go into owning a gun.
Like, when you consider, should we charge her as an accessory to these murders?
Okay.
I would go as far as to say, yeah, because again, you're responsible for those things. If you're not going to be responsible for it, then
she let him use it.
Well, that's exactly right. She allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
So she should be part of the.
But I'm saying whether she knew about it or not, whether he told her or whether he didn't tell her, she should be responsible.
I don't think she knew that he was going to take them to
school, but she knew that he was getting.
But she knew, and she allowed him to use the guns because
that just means you get a harsher sentence when it comes down to it. I mean, because there's like I didn't know, but you had access, and then there's I had reason to believe, and you still did nothing. That's even more damning. The only thing worse than that is I equipped him to do so. Okay, pick the one you want to use on the children. That's about the only way it could get worse at that point.
Okay, I'm gonna read two things. One is a Facebook post from her, and one is a report from law enforcement officials in Oregon. I'm not gonna read the whole Facebook post from her, just the part where she talks about what kind of gun she had. So, an open carry law won't work everywhere, and when the mood strikes, and as long as we're tossing around brand names, I sling an AR, a Tech 9 or AK over my shoulder, or holster a Glock 21, not 22, or one of my other handguns like the Sig Sauer P226 and walk out the door. I find the shotguns are a little too cumbersome to open carry. She added, but Chris, I refuse to believe that you have no imagination. So the law enforcement officials report, according to officials, 13 guns in total were recovered, 6 from the campus and where the shooting took place, and 7 from the apartment reportedly shared with the shooter's mother. Officials said the guns were all traced back to a federal firearms dealer, and 7 of the weapons had been purchased legally or other family members over the last purchased legally by the mother or other family members over the last 3 years.
Okay, so in relation to this case, is it been determined that he was fully aware of what he was doing per se, or like when in his right mind, or did he have a suffering condition of mental illness, as often these cases are categorized as? Does it define any of that?
I do not believe he was.
Because I don't have the specifics on this particular case. At one point, I just kind of chalk it up to another shooting.
It's a shame that they're happening so frequently that that's kind of what a lot of people are doing, and I think people are realizing that, especially like after the Sandy Hook shooting. It's like, if you don't change anything after a bunch of children get murdered, when is something going to change? And I think that's why people are getting so frustrated nowadays with the whole process, is because these things are continuing to happen over and over again. And yeah, I love going to work, making my money, and coming home, but yeah, it also hurts to hear that these massive shootings are happening on a regular basis in your country.
Well, if it's happening so frequently, my thing on the amount of times that we hear about these shootings, there are a lot of things that we don't hear about on the news that are not prioritized, because it makes more news to talk about a guy who killed any number of kids in the school, 20, 10, 5, 3, any of them. Even one lost is an issue. But you don't hear anything about the number of kids who killed themselves with a gun in a suicidal fashion. You don't hear about the accidents of a misfire. You don't when they had access to that and there was an accidental death. You don't really hear too much about those. It's more about every so often, pretty periodically, we hear about a guy who got access to something, had the shooting, and that usually gives the steam needed to ramp the whole political debate up on why we need this or why we don't. And again, depending on which letter follows your name, when you're running in the presidential race, if you're a Democrat, you are trying to stop everyone from having guns and make us, a super socialist communist deity with no ability to defend yourself. That's the view from Republicans. And on the Republican side, it's, screw them. I have my guns and I'm doing what I need to do, so whatever. And then, everyone's just kind of left to it, so they get super NRA mode and really defensive. And they come off as very heartless and apathetic to the fact that, yeah, some kids just died. Like, they were robbed of the chance to grow up. I mean, one of them could have cured cancer. One of them could have, found a longer-lasting light bulb. I mean, there are a number of things that they could have grown up to be. Some of them might have grown up to be horrible serial killers, but, you don't know what they were going to be. And you will never know that because that happened. But those are the stories that tend to gain the most traction in supporting that cause.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the videos with Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they're harvesting the fetuses. Well, let's lead the charge to ban abortion. That's just how that stuff gets started up and how that goes. So those stories usually feel fire. Where do you stand, Jaysin, on the idea of regulating the process more? Do you have ideas on what that would entail for having more strict gun control laws? First of all, do you agree with Hillary pursuing that avenue? And do you think there's a specific way that it needs to be approached?
Okay, I do agree with Hillary. I hate saying that. But
because she's a Democrat doesn't mean she has bad ideas. But
no, it's not because
she's her as a whole. It's just on this issue.
It's just because she's so establishment and bought that I have so many problems with her. She's flip-floppy and wishy-washy, so I can't trust her.
So do you think we should trust her in her approach to...
Do I actually think she's going
controls?
to do anything about it? No, not really.
Okay.
What would you do?
Yeah, what would your approach be to making it safer to own a weapon in this country, to attain and then to maintain?
Well, we need to get rid of that whole, after 3 days, you just go ahead and get the gun thing with the background check.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go ahead and get rid of that loophole first and foremost, because we need to have those background checks, because if we don't, we let so many people slip through the cracks, and those are potentially the people who are unstable, not necessarily mentally ill, but unstable, and they do end up committing crimes or killing people.